I'd like to show you how to do some simple monoprinting using things that you'll find lying around your home. So let's get started. So here I've got some samples of pictures that I've done with just one colour, black, and then moved on to some colours. We'll look at some different shapes and textures. And then we'll look at using more than one colour and different types of paper. So these are the materials that we're going to use to do our printing. We need something to actually print on, and this tabletop would actually be quite good because you could actually wipe it afterwards and it would be clean again and it would be okay. But that is maybe not the best idea. So what you might want to have is a smooth foil surface like this, which is just the inside of a crisp packet. I have a small piece of glass here which came out of a picture frame that I didn't want anymore, and just to make it safe I put some masking tape around the edges of the glass so I wouldn't cut myself on it, and that makes quite a nice small surface to print from. And the other thing that you can use, that I'm going to use today, is just a piece of plastic from a roll of bin liners. And I have just cut a square of plastic here, which is going to be larger than the paper that I'm using, so we know we can print from it. And the first thing that I'm going to do with this is tape this to the table. There's the little bit. So I'm going to use masking tape, but sellotape would be fine as well. Just going to make sure that it's quite nice and tight. Doesn't have to be completely flat. There we go. So that's it stuck down. So the next thing that we are going to need is we will need a couple of paintbrushes, or one paintbrush at least, and we will need some paper to print on. So I have made some A5 sizes, so that's half the size of a piece of photocopy paper. And that means that you can just make quite a lot of small things to get started, and it's easier to start on a small scale. So I have A4 copier paper, I have some newspaper, I have newsprint, which is nice and thin and quite cheap to buy, so it's good. I like tracing paper, so I have a few sheets of tracing paper. And finally I have some pages from a couple of books that I'm going to throw out, and some more newspaper. So if you're going to use a book to get paper from, it's quite a good idea to actually take the book, and if you really open it up properly and pull back on the spine, that releases the pages, and it makes it much easier to take the whole page out without actually tearing that edge. And of course you could use magazine paper, you can use coloured paper, anything at all would be great. So that's our paper. Put that to one side. And then I have here a sheet of cardboard, sort of cardboard from a cereal packet would be really good, but anything would do really, or extra thick paper. And we're just going to cut a hole in the centre of it like this. And the reason for this is it makes a nice guide for when we're printing. So I'll show you what we're going to do. If we take the piece of cardboard, and I'm going to print, as I said, mostly on A5 sheets of paper. The book's slightly smaller, as you can see, but I'll take the A5 sheet here. And if I put it, if I maybe put a white one in there, we might see that better. Put that on there. If I get a pencil. Got a pen. And if we draw all the way round this sheet of paper, we will be left with a mark like this one here. So we can see this mark here. So this is the size of the paper that we're going to print on. And then what we want to do is we actually want to make the area that we print on smaller so that we have a little border around our prints. So you can use a ruler or you can just do it roughly, but what you want to do is make that inside box smaller than the outside line. And once you've cut it out, you'll be left with a frame like this. I think I did 2 frames and one is slightly smaller than the other one, and that was maybe for a different size of paper. So whatever size will be good for you, just so you have a nice border for your print. And so once we've done that, I'm going to place, actually I'll do it this way, I'm going to place my cardboard over the plastic, and I'm going to just give myself a nice line on here. It kind of helps maybe if you're, it's quite hard to make any pen stay on the cardboard, but there we go, that's good enough. So that's us ready with these bits, so we can put the cardboard away. We have our paper beside us, so we'll have a look at some of the material that we might use to make our textures and images. And I've made a little collection of things. I have some metal washers and rings. I have some ready-made combs, hair combs. This one's nice because it has a nice end you can draw with as well as the teeth. And these are pieces of old credit cards, and you can cut different sized teeth into those for drawing with. I have some plastic that has some nice holes in it. A piece of rubber netting that I maybe found on the beach. And I have some other netting from plastic bags with onions and fruit in them from the supermarket, and they come in different sort of textures, and you can play about with those later on. I also have some string, and I have some leaves as well, which we can use. So you could use coins, paper clips, all sorts of things, just whatever you've got sort of lying around. So we'll put those things back here just now, and then I can the last thing that I have is, well, it's not the, is I have some paper just in case I want to wipe my paintbrush or wipe the plastic. And then finally we do have the acrylic paint that we're going to use. And I have some black paint and I have some other colours that, that I want to use as well. So I'm going to use some black ink first of all. I'm going to take my brush. And we don't need a huge amount of ink. And what we're going to do is just paint inside the guide. It doesn't have to be absolutely completely accurate, but it just helps to know where we're going to go. So I'm going to just paint on there. I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to lay it over the top of the ink, paint, and then I'm going to take this comb and I'm going to just pull the comb over and I'm going to just draw into it. And when I pull that off, that's left a nice print. There was a bit too much paint down at this corner so you can see where it's come out, but you can see where the marks from the comb and so on were. That there. I might just going to take a little bit of tissue and I'm going to just wipe that extra bit of paint away from the corner. And then I'm going to take another sheet of white paper. And before this paint is completely dried, I'm going to put another piece over. And this time I'm going to rub that quite firmly. And hopefully, not quite enough, so it's left some little bits but not quite enough, so let's try once more. So we'll put some more paint on. And I'll use a piece of newsprint. I'm going to put that on. This is quite thin paper, so it has torn a tiny little bit at the corner. But there we go, we've still managed to take a print from there. And you might just be able to take a little print again. There we go. So the one thing about monoprinting is that you never know exactly what you're going to get. And it's just a matter of sort of trial and error. So we'll try one more. And this time, there's quite a little bit of paint on there, so I'm actually going to place my paper over, and I can see the paint. You can see the paint through there, which makes it easier to line that up and make it fairly equal on each side. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that off this time, a little bit of the extra paint away. A little bit of a pattern. And this time I'm going to draw into the paint rub that quite firmly on the back. And there we can see the marks that I made with my fingernails and the marks that we made with the comb. So already we've made 3 different ways of printing. So we have put that over our paint and we've drawn on this side. Then we've taken a print of what's left on the paint, and then we've actually drawn into the paint to make a print. So that gives us 3 nice ways of producing different sort of textures and patterns. So I'll make one more with the black. So we don't want too much paint on there, because as you can see, all that happens when you press on the back is that it really sort of seeps out, and it is quite tricky because obviously you don't want too little, because then nothing comes through. But this time I'm going to lay my nice sort of circle metal on there. Then I am going to, and I'm going to press quite firmly to try and lift that ink from between that surface that's between the paper and the paint. So we can just do that, see what we get when we peel it off, and hopefully we'll be left with a nice texture. And if I do this fairly quickly, I'm going to just peel this off. I'm going to get another piece of paper and lay that over, and then if I rub gently, not too gently, but that's, and we peel that away, then we're left with the reverse image. So we get 2 different textures from the same print. So I'm now going to clean this a little bit. I've got a little bit of water, and I am going to take that away. And we'll just dry this off. I'm going to take my template and I'm going to mark out my shape. There we go. And I am going to use some coloured paint this time. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue paint. And of course you can do all the same things that we've just done with any of the colours of paint. This time I'm going to look at making a background for doing another print on top of. So just a tiny bit more. You can get water-based printing ink that you can buy to do this with. It does take quite a long time to dry, and that's the beauty of doing it with acrylic paint, that your prints do dry quite quickly, because you do tend to end up with quite a lot of them. And I'm going to just make a background on this sheet of tracing paper And you can see the colour through that, so you can line it up quite nicely. And I'm just going to make a little bit of a background on there, and there's some little bits. In fact, the nice thing about the tracing paper is it picks up the texture of the brush quite well. And I'm just going to peel that off. And that's going to make a nice background to do another print over. If I put it onto there, then you can see that quite nicely. It's got some nice patterns on it already. I might just try and do one more on my sheet of paper. There we go. So I have two background images to then build another image on top of. So I've already made some of these so that they'll be dry and I can show you the next step. So I've got one here that has a little bit of pink and orange. That one has some black. We just have some blue and some pink. So all sorts of different colours. We have some dark green and some more of the red colour. What will I use? I think I might use some white paint, and I might actually take some of the smaller leaves because I think they work quite well. And I'm going to get some white paint. So pull this brush out. And I'm quite happy to just put the white over the blue. It might pick up a tiny bit, but I think that it'll be okay. And we'll just put the onto here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to lay my leaves down onto here, and I'm going to take one of my pieces of paper that's already got a nice background on it, and I'm going to lay that over the white and over the leaves, and I'm going to work quite firmly at pressing down over all the leaves. And then I'm going to peel that off, and there we go, the white leaves, all this sort of image of where the leaves have been to make another new print. And I'm going to take these leaves off, and I think that I might just manage to lay them carefully onto this image, and I'm going to press on the leaves. And I'm hoping that there might be enough ink, but I have a feeling that there isn't. There's a little bit left, and so you can see how we can get a little bit of the leaves onto this print here. I think my leaves are too dry, and if they weren't so dry, I think it would leave a nicer image. But that one's worked really well, and you can see the shapes of the leaves really clearly there, and you get the underneath texture, which is really nice as well. So this time I'm going to put a little bit more, just a little bit more white on here. It's a little bit dry. Let's just do that. Take my bits of leaves away. And this time I am going to take the string. I'm just going to let the string loop round on this surface, and quite nice sort of thick thread or wool or anything would give you similar patterns. I'll just put that there. And this time I'll take the pink background, I'm going to lay it over the top. You just want to make sure that you really rub over it well, so that you're leaving a really good sort of imprint of the shape of the thread underneath. I'm going to get into all these little sort of nooks and crannies between the threads. And then when you think you've done that pretty well, you can peel it up and you get left with another nice image. And you can always add a third colour on top of these as well. Take this one off, and I might just try and take the white away. There we go. That's it all cleaned off. And I can just see where that square is now. So let's see if I can have a little bit of yellow paint. Clean my brush out again. This is slightly thinner paint. There we go. So that's quite evenly covered. And I'm going to put the rope back into it. And then we'll take this print put one and we'll just try one more layer on top. Pull that off. Take the string away, and then we get left with all three colours on the print, and so you can build them up. So that's it for monoprinting at the moment. There's lots and lots of ideas of things that you can do, but I'll leave you with those ideas at the moment, and then you can start practicing and having some fun. And when you've made lots of different things, you can always use these as pieces of paper to make collages from. You can tear them up, cut them out. They make nice little covers if you're going to make small sketchbooks, all sorts of things that you can do with them, and it's great fun to try out. So I hope you have fun with some monoprinting. Thank you.